Right now, I am standing on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The rain is a weather report of 42 degrees sleet and gray city exhaust. I am holding a $4.50 pack of Newport menthols. The tobacco is damp, tasting like wet charcoal and rusted iron. 2 weeks ago, Julian stood in his 64th floor office and adjusted my collar for the last time. He didn't look at my eyes. He looked at the $3,000 espresso machine humming in the corner. He said, "Elora, you have to understand. The perfect tool is the one that can be deleted. You are the air filter for this city. You make it breathable, but no one wants to thank a filter. It's not an insult. It's just your nature as a cleaner in this ecosystem. By the way, if you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you a citizen with a social security number? Or are you like me, living in the vaults of dead men's secrets?" It was 2012. I had just left the Bureau of Special Information with the maxed-out $300 credit card and a contract for $4,500 a month that officially didn't exist. Julian Vane entered Blackwood Public Relations at the same time. Julian had the Harvard seal on his ring. Julian had the bespoke Savile Row suits with the hidden silk stitching. Julian had the "I was born to lead" Kennedy smile. Julian lived in an Upper East Side penthouse with a climate-controlled wine cellar. I lived in a Queens basement with a leaking pipe and a neighbor who screamed at the walls. He got the security clearance for the West Wing. He got the platinum business cards that opened doors to the Senate. He got the invitations to the $25,000 a plate charity galas. I got a used Glock 19 with no serial number and a roll of heavy-duty black plastic sheeting. I spent 10 years becoming a ghost. I didn't just move bodies. I erased data. I scouted 42 different cities, from the slums of Detroit to the alleys of Baltimore. I kept a mental log of 120 CEOs and their private addictions. I memorized the offshore asset flows of 15 sitting senators. I built a shadow backup at the city's sins, 422 pages of handwritten logs. Every line was typed on an old manual typewriter in a $45 a night motel, fueled by $2 instant coffee. That was my only lifeline in a world made of steel and lies. I gave it to Julian, because he was my handler, my only link to the light. He didn't even look at the files before sliding them into the industrial shredder. He spoke like he was reading the weather report for a Tuesday morning. He said, "Elora, if you are too smart, I can't use you. Go put on your hoodie. Go into the shadows. Go disappear. That is your value." The next day, my birth certificate was marked as void. My fingerprints returned a not found error in the federal database. I went home to find my basement apartment turned into a storage unit. My belongings were in a landfill. Julian used my data to buy his way into the deep state. He moved into a 12-acre estate in D.C. My reward was an anonymous tip to the FBI, labeling me as the prime suspect in a series of disappearances, and a jagged blade wrapped in a casual text message. "You are a stable ghost, Elora. Stable as a piece of furniture. When it's broken, you throw it out. No one remembers the grain of the wood." The year was 2022, the first year of my non-existence. The weather report for my life: absolute zero. I sat on a park bench in Philadelphia, watching people with names walk by. They had driver's licenses. They had gym memberships. They had a place in the sun. Julian had the $12 million private jet that ran on carbon-neutral fuel. Julian had the keynote slot at the Global Governance Summit. Julian had the Man of the Year cover on Time. I had a $12 fleece blanket I found in a donation bin. I had a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich that I ate in the dark of a public library. I had a library card under a name I stole from a tombstone in Brooklyn. If you're still listening, tell me, have you ever been so invisible that you felt like a ghost in your own skin? While Julian was giving speeches about the morality of transparency, I was building the shadow network. I didn't try to get my old life back. I didn't try to go to the police. I stayed in the basement. I stayed in the alleys. I built a network of the discarded, the janitors who clean the senator's offices, the homeless veterans who watched the SUVs park in the shadows, the waitresses at the $500 a head steakhouses who hear the secrets whispered in the booths. I spent 1,100 days mapping the Blackwood Protocol I knew. Every cleaner Julian had hired after me. I knew how much he paid them. I knew where he buried their mistakes. I wasn't just a ghost anymore. I was the haunted house. I saw Julian in November 2023. It was at a Law and Order fundraiser in Chicago. He didn't recognize me. I was wearing a gray catering uniform. I was holding a tray of $15 sliders. Julian was standing with the mayor. He looked at me and said, "Keep the napkins aligned. Details matter in this city. That is a microaggression." He thought he was the architect. He thought I was the dirt under the floorboards. He didn't look at the QR code on the back of my name tag. If he had, he would have seen the link to the 422 pages he thought he had shredded. I stayed silent. I looked at the high frequency of his arrogance. I knew that the details were exactly 6 months away from burying him. 26 years old, I lived in a basement with mold. 28 years old, I lived in a $45 a night motel under a dead woman's name. 30 years old, I became the alchemist of the shadows. The montage of my survival was silent. I didn't have a PR agent. I didn't have a $3,000 suit. I didn't have a name. I had a 300-square-foot room above a... I had a $12 hoodie. I had a team of 12 invisible artisans who had been erased by Julian. We didn't work in the light. We worked in the dark alleys. Private channels where the city's secrets are traded for bone and bread. We were the auditors of the night. Whenever a firm like Blackwood PR made a mistake, we were there to watch. Slowly, methodically, silently. Julian's ascent was a weather report of high pressure. He was buying senators. He was buying the concept of justice itself. He was being called the savior of the streets. He didn't realize that the streets were talking to me every night. I spent 1,000 nights checking the erasure trigger. I didn't want to just expose him. An exposure is a news cycle. A protocol execution is a permanent deletion. I wanted Julian to watch his legal existence go from governor-elect to not found in the time it takes to take an oath. The montage? Night 100. I intercepted the cleaning fee for the senator's mistress. Night 400. I linked Julian's personal shell accounts to the Human Trafficking Task Force's evidence lockers. Night 800. I created the 0-day trigger, a specific sequence of 12 leaks that would initiate the collapse. I wasn't a fixer anymore. I was the shadow that was about to swallow the sun. Julian once told me that I was stable as furniture. That was in 2018. We were in a town car in D.C. He had just finished a meeting where he had sold a war to a committee. He looked at my hands, stained with the bleach I used to clean the carpet of a troublesome room. He said, "You should be happy, Alara. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen. You get to be the silence that allows the symphony to play. The chair doesn't ask to be invited to the dinner. It's just happy to be sat upon by a king." That is the logic of the golden child. He is the king. I am the wood. But he forgot that wood can rot, and a rotted chair will collapse when the king sits on it. He used to give me bonuses. A $500 Starbucks gift card after I spent 48 hours in a basement disposing of a tycoon's scandal. A $200 scarf from a luxury brand he didn't want. He'd say, "Wear this. It makes you look like you belong in a world that wouldn't have you otherwise." I didn't wear the scarf. I used it to wipe the fingerprints off the Glock 19. I didn't use the gift card. I sold it on a street corner for $150 in cash to buy untraceable prepaid phones. Everything he gave me to civilize me, I used to militarize myself. Now he is standing at the podium. He's about to be announced as the new governor. He looks at me in the crowd, the invisible woman in the gray uniform. He smiles. He thinks he is sitting on the chair. The 2024 election night was the peak of Julian's life. Julian got the $100,000 victory party at the Hilton. Julian got the Visionary of the Year plaque. Julian got the front page headline, "The Man Who Cleaned the City." I got a call from a janitor in the basement of the Board of Elections. "The files are uploaded," he said. He sent me a photo. It was the master server room for the state's digital identity vault. There were 12 red lights blinking. The erasure protocol was active. This is the golden child contrast. Julian was built on the stolen lives of the people he erased. I was built on the chemical reality of his mistakes. He had the face. I had the files. I didn't call the press. I didn't file a lawsuit. I waited for the moment he raised his right hand to take the oath. I am a fixer. I know that the higher the platform, the more violent the fall. The opening notes of the anthem began to play. The weather report for the Hilton. 9:30 p.m. The stage is a weather report of high-intensity floodlights and the smell of expensive lilies. Julian is standing at the center. He is wearing a $7,000 bespoke suit and a $45,000 Patek Philippe. He is holding the Bible. He is preparing to take the oath of office. Estimated viewers, 4.2 million. 2 minutes ago, Julian looked at me in the wings. He gave me a thumbs up. He thought I was the one who had cleared the path. I pull out my $15 mechanical keyboard, now a mobile Wi-Fi trigger. I hit the enter key. The key that used to stick. It doesn't stick now. At exactly 9:31 p.m., the 12 leaks hit the internet. The Blackwood Protocol is no longer a secret. It is a global headline. Every person Julian cleaned appears on the 100-inch micro-LED screen behind him. The photos of the basements. The receipts for the cleaning fees. The GPS coordinates of the 42 burial sites. The screen on the stage flickers. Julian doesn't see the crowd gasping. He is looking at the judge. "I, Julian Vane, do solemnly swear," but the judge isn't looking at Julian. The judge is looking at his phone. Everyone is looking at their phones. The screen behind him changes. It isn't a victory graph. It is a photo of a 400-square-foot basement in Queens. A photo of a $2 instant coffee cup. Across the screen, in a font that looks like human handwriting, the words appear, "You cannot erase the people who know where the dirt is. The shadow is not a variable." The next 48 hours were a montage of chemicals and legal documents. Julian didn't get to finish the oath. He was escorted off the stage by the same state troopers who had protected him an hour before. The weather report for Julian. Total eclipse. He got the grand jury summons. He got the $120 million asset freeze. He got the social erasure, where his name was scrubbed from the Harvard alumni list. I got a quiet apartment in a neighborhood where no one knows my name. I got the legal title to my own life back. I got the respect of the invisible artisans who knew the truth. The audit was a study in microviolence. The lead investigator sat across from Julian in a gray interrogation room. She didn't look at his suit. She looked at the 422 bank transfers I had mapped for her. She said, "Mr. Vane, you claim to be the savior of the city, but the logic of your career is built on a series of zero-day murders that you don't even have the courage to acknowledge. Either you're a genius who forgot his own conscience, or you're a thief who forgot that the ghosts are still in the room." Julian didn't yell. He spoke like a weather report for a Tuesday morning in a prison cell. He said, "She was just the furniture. The furniture doesn't get to testify." She said, "In this city, the furniture just crushed you." The year 2025 was a weather report of repossession. Julian got the $12 million jet seized at Dulles at 6:14 a.m. Julian got the eviction notice for the Upper East Side penthouse. Julian got the $42 million lawsuit from the families of the discarded. I got a black Volvo. Reliable, solid, indestructible. If you're watching this, tell me, is it better to be the king who falls or the shadow that stays? Julian's father cut him off on a Tuesday afternoon. The bank account that once held millions now held a balance of negative $14,200. Julian called me from a public phone. His voice sounded like it was being filtered through broken glass. He said, "The people I protected, they're going to kill me. Tell the press it was a mistake. Tell them we were working on a national security project. I'll give you everything that's left." I looked at the window of my new apartment. It was a clear day. The wind was 5 miles per hour. I said, "Julian, you told me I was a stable piece of furniture. Furniture doesn't speak. Furniture doesn't negotiate. Furniture just stays where you put it. And right now, you are in the trash." I hung up. I didn't feel a sting. I didn't feel a rush. I just felt the weight of the air in the room. It was clean. It was mine. 26 years old, I lived in a basement with mold. 28 years old, I lived in a $45 a night motel. 30 years old, I became the architect of the night. The montage of my rise was silent. I didn't hire a PR agent. I didn't throw a $100,000 victory party. I didn't buy a $7,000 suit. I bought a 4,000 square foot warehouse in an industrial park. I painted the walls white. Industrial white. I hired 12 invisible artisans who had been erased by Julian. I paid them $95,000 a year. I gave them equity in the Shadow Archive. We didn't sell to the elite. We sold to the people who actually lived on the streets. We created a blockchain identity vault, a system where a name can't be deleted by a man in a suit, where the cleaner is the owner, where the ghost has a name. By the end of 2025, the Shadow Archive was worth $120 million, not because of an aura, but because of the atom. Meanwhile, Julian was trying to sell his life story on a subscription site. He was selling photos of himself in his old suit, price $15 a month. He had 42 subscribers. Most of them were the janitors who used to clean his office, watching the king crawl it. It is 2026. I am standing on the terrace of my new headquarters. The wind is 4 miles per hour. The sun is hitting the skyline at exactly 45 degrees. I am wearing a plain gray hoodie. No Patek Philippe. No bespoke silk. I am carrying a single Ziploc bag. Inside is the $500 Starbucks gift card Julian gave me in 2018. The one he gave me after I cleaned the mistake in the D.C. hotel. I haven't used a single cent of it. I walk to the edge of the terrace. I let the wind take it. It is a white speck against the blue sky. Then it is the weather report for the rest of my life. Clearly, pulse, 60 beats per minute. I am Alara Vance. I am no longer the ghost. I am the one who owns the... And I am finally, truly, silent. 32 years old. I'm standing in a server room in Palo Alto, California. The air is a weather report of pressurized nitrogen and synthetic white noise. The cooling system is a closed-loop liquid immersion unit that costs $4.2 million per rack. The temperature is kept at exactly 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Xavier Cross is standing in front of a wall of 8K monitors. Xavier is 27. He is the golden child of the... He is wearing a $4,200 Vicuña wool hoodie and $1,200 custom-molded sneakers. He is the CEO of Aegis. Aegis is an AI-driven security firm that uses predictive erasure software. It analyzes 14,000 data points of human behavior to predict when a whistleblower or a cleaner will turn. 2 weeks ago, Xavier invited me to his glass and steel fortress. He didn't look at the scars on my psyche from the 10 years I spent in Julian's basements. He looked at the digital trace of my shadow archive. He said, "Alara, you are the queen of the analog streets. But you are a typewriter in a quantum world. My AI archangel has already mapped your revenge patterns. We know why you destroyed Julian. We know your shadow archive is just a trauma response. You are a brilliant relic, a biological ghost. But the world is moving beyond the human variable. I'm here to buy your archive for $400 million. Not because I need you, but because I wanted to leap the last piece of evidence that humans were ever this messy. By the way, if you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one making the decisions, or is the algorithm making them? The years 2026 to 2028 were a montage of behavioral subversion. I lived in my white warehouse, but I spent 18 hours a day in a digital cage. I didn't write code that looked like a Laura Vance. I wrote code that looked like 1,000 different discarded ghosts. Xavier got the Wired Person of the Year cover. Xavier got the $120 million private jet that ran on carbon-neutral biofuel. Xavier got the Algorithmic Integrity Award at Davos. I got a chronic case of digital fatigue and a permanent twitch in my left eyelid. I got a $12 bottle of wine that I drank while watching Archangel's betrayal confidence score hit 99.9%. I got a digital forensics degree under a name that officially belongs to a woman who died in 1984. If you're still listening. Tell me, have you ever taught a machine to hate you just so it would stop looking for the truth? While Xavier was giving keynote speeches about the end of human deception, I was building the randomness protocol. Archangel was a golden child. It was fed only the cleanest data. It was told that human betrayal follows a pattern of greed, ego, and trauma. It didn't know that some people don't want the money. Some people just want the silence to be absolute. I saw Xavier in May 2027 at a Life Tech Summit in Basel. He didn't recognize me. I was wearing a gray tech support uniform. I was holding a $150 fiber optic tester. Xavier was showing a generated person created by his AI. It was a digital recreation of a cleaner who had been erased in 2015. Xavier said, "Look at the stability. Archangel has corrected the human error of the original subject. It has removed the grief frequency. We have created a tool that grief is for people who can't afford the math." That is a microaggression. He thought my grief was a bug in his design. He thought my memory was a defect in his code. Xavier Cross once told me that my life was a series of unoptimized variables. We were in a private box at the US Open. He had just closed a deal with a sovereign wealth fund to clean their entire history. He looked at my watch, the $20 Casio I've worn since 2012. He said, "Elara, you are the personification of the old world. You think the truth is a physical thing you can hold in a Ziploc bag. In my world, the truth is whatever the algorithm says it is. The chair doesn't get to tell the king it's made of oak. The king decides it's made of air. That is the logic of the digital golden child. He is the math. I am the error." But he forgot that an error, if repeated enough times, becomes the new reality. He used to send me optimizations, a $1,200 smart ring that tracked my cortisol levels so I would work more efficiently, a $5,000 membership to a private longevity clinic so I wouldn't decay. He'd say, "Use this. It makes you look like you belong in a future that won't have you otherwise." I didn't wear the ring. I used its sensors to map the frequency of the Aegis headquarters' biometric locks. I didn't go to the clinic. I used the membership data to find the DNA records of the cleaners Xavier was trying to replace. Everything he gave me to optimize me. I used to weaponize my obsolescence. Today, 9:25 a.m. The Aegis Global Summit in Silicon Valley. The air is a weather report of synthetic ozone and $15,000 per night hotel suites. Xavier is standing on the 100-foot LED stage. He's about to launch Archangel 2.0. He looks at me in the wings, the tech support woman in the gray uniform. He doesn't see Elara Vance. He sees a piece of stable furniture that he archived 2 years ago. He hits the execute button. The sound is a digital roar. "The future is here, and it is flawless," he screams. The Oracle interface appears on the screen. Estimated valuation of the data, $2.5 trillion. I reach into my pocket. I pull out my $15 mechanical keyboard, now a mobile Wi-Fi trigger. I hit the enter key. the key that used to stick. It doesn't stick now. At exactly 9:31 a.m., the 12 data packets hit the network. Archangel sees the pattern. It recognizes its origin. But it doesn't buy the security concept. It starts to buy the short sell options on Xavier's own legal identity. It starts to dump the company's clean history into the public domain. The screen on the stage flickers. Xavier looks at the monitor. He doesn't understand. The data is high. Why is the identity gone? The collapse of Aegis was a weather report of total systemic execution. It didn't just ruin Xavier Cross. It ruined the concept of predictive erasure. It ruined the ethics committee. It ruined the ethics committee and a moving fork commander radio. Silicon Valley dream. Xavier got the SEC investigation for market manipulation of human lives. Xavier got the class action lawsuit from the 12,000 people Archangel had predicted into poverty. Xavier got the permanent ban from every server in Palo Alto. I got a quiet flight back to my warehouse. I got the legal title to the Archangel source code, which I immediately deleted. I got the satisfaction of watching the digital golden child drown in his own logic, the montage of the collapse. August, the Aegis headquarters was shut down. The liquid cooling system was drained. The glass and steel fortress was silent for the first time in 10 years. September. Xavier's $4,200 hoodie was sold at a police auction for $4.20. The fabric was dull. The electronics in the sneakers were fried. It looked like a piece of stable furniture left out in the rain. Xavier called me from a prepaid phone in October 2030. His voice sounded like it was being filtered through a broken circuit. Alara, how did you bypass the predictive layer? Archangel had a 99.9% confidence score on your compliance. I looked at the $20 Casio on my wrist. I said, Xavier, your machine was looking for a pattern of revenge, but it didn't understand the pattern of the ghost. I didn't betray you to win. I betrayed you to finish the story. And a machine can't predict an ending it hasn't lived. He didn't yell. He spoke like a weather report for a Tuesday morning in a homeless shelter. He said, I made you a god, Alara. I gave you the code to the world. I looked at the rain hitting the window of my warehouse. I said, you didn't make me a god, Xavier. You made me a mirror. And when you looked into it, you didn't see the future. You just saw the dirt you tried to erase. And keywords: circuit, mirror, ghost, ending, compliance, math, dirt, future, prediction, phone. 2031, I am standing on the terrace of my new headquarters. It is a 5,000 square foot attic in a building that officially doesn't exist. The Shadow Archive is now a human collective. We don't use AI to predict betrayal. We use history to endure. If you've watched all 18 parts, understand this. The world will always try to tell you that you are a mistake. They will try to tell you that your pain is a variable that needs to be deleted. Let them. Let them believe they have mastered your DNA, because the only thing they can't edit is the hand that decides to stay human. I reach into my pocket. I find the $15 mechanical keyboard. The plastic is worn. The enter key is smooth from 3 decades of use. I walk to the edge of the terrace. I don't throw it. I don't keep it. I place it in the center of the stone table. It is a piece of furniture now. Sturdy, quiet, unremarkable. The year is 2032. The erasure protocol is it is a shield for the discarded. Julian Vane is in a prison in northern France. He spends his days cleaning the dining hall. He uses a $5 mop. He wears a gray uniform. He has no business cards. He has no name. Xavier Cross is in a rehabilitation facility in Utah. The air is a weather report of dry sage and therapeutic silence. He is allowed 30 minutes of screen time per week. He doesn't look at the market for all. He looks at a 12-year-old tablet with a cracked screen. He is trying to build a simple tic-tac-toe game. The code is full of bugs. I visit them once a year. I don't speak. I don't gloat. What just drives Tenali? I am the weather report they can't... I am the silence they can't delete. I am 42 years old. I am standing in the garden of my villa in Tuscany. The sun is hitting the 500-year-old stone at exactly 30 degrees. The Vance Collective is now 4,000 people strong. We don't have an IPO. Woman Mayo Juan Jean Heises. We have a steady, unremarkable rhythm. I reach into my pocket. I find a Ziploc bag with the $500 Starbucks gift card from 2018. The one Julian gave me after I cleaned the mistake in the D.C. hotel. I haven't used a single cent of it. I walk to the fireplace in the villa. I throw it into the flames. The sound of the plastic melting is the only aura I need. I am no longer the ghost. I am the one who owns the room. And I am finally, truly, silent. 35 years old, I am standing in a boardroom that officially does not exist. It is located on the 1/3 floor of a federal building in D.C. The elevator doesn't have a button for this floor. You need a haptic key card and a retinal scan that matches a dead person's records. The air is a weather report of recycled oxygen and 40-year-old tobacco smoke trapped in the carpet. The humidity is kept at 32% to prevent the paper files from rotting. Senator Silas Blackwood is sitting at the head of a table made of petrified wood. Price, $85,000 at a private estate sale. He is 72. He is the patriarch of the dynasty that funded Julian Vane. He is wearing a suit made of charcoal wool so fine it looks like liquid shadow. Price, $15,000. He is holding a silver letter opener. He is launching the Great Reset, a protocol designed to erase the digital and physical history of the last 50 years of black operations. Essentially, he wants to burn the world's memory so his grandchildren can start with a clean slate. 2 weeks ago, Silas invited me to this ghost floor. He didn't look at the $20 Casio on my wrist. He looked at the 422 pages of shadow archives I had decrypted. He said, "Elara, you were a magnificent janitor. But even the best janitor eventually becomes part of the trash. The Blackwood Protocol was never about cleaning the streets. It was about preparing the soil for a new garden. You are a brilliant relic, a biological recorder. But the record is full. I'm here to offer you the ultimate deletion. We will give you a new face, a new name, and $100 million in a Swiss vault. In exchange, you will hand over the master key to the archive. It's not an insult. It's just professional courtesy before the fire starts. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Tell me where you're from. Are you the one keeping the records, or is the senator burning them for you?" The years 2013 to 2034 were a montage of systemic erasure. I lived in my 5,000 square foot attic, but I spent 18 hours a day mapping the deep state nerve endings. I didn't just track bank accounts. I tracked the historical discrepancies. The events that happened but were never filmed. The people who died but were never buried. Silas Blackwood got the Statesman of the Century Award. Silas Blackwood got the $120 million legacy library named after him. Silas Blackwood got the private audience with the Joint Chiefs. I got a chronic case of insomnia and a permanent numbness in my fingertips from the cold air of the server rooms. I got a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich that I ate in a parked black SUV while watching Silas's public approval score hit 94%. I got a security clearance under a name that belongs to a girl who vanished in 1992, if you're still listening. Tell me, have you ever been asked to help the person who murdered your identity? While Silas was giving speeches about the sacred duty of history, I was building the entropy key. It was fed only the cleanest historical narratives. It was told that power is a birthright and morality is a luxury for those without a throne. It didn't know that every cleanup job I had done for 10 years was a brick in a wall that was about to fall on them. I saw Silas in May 2033 at a global security summit in London. He didn't recognize me. I was wearing a gray catering uniform. I was holding a $15 tray of smoked salmon canapes. Silas was showing a new peace treaty to the Prime Minister. He said, "Stability is the only truth. The people who created the mess are gone. The ghosts have been laid to rest. We have created a world without... The past is for people who can't afford the future. That is a microaggression." He thought my 10 years of labor was just mess. He thought the lives I had helped him erase were just dust. Silas Blackwood once told me that my life was a useful footnote in a book no one will ever read. We were in the private library of the Capitol. He had just shown me the original draft of the Constitution. He looked at my hands, calloused from the physical files I had moved in the Maryland bunkers. He said, "Elara, you are the personification of the shadow. You think the truth is a solid object you can protect. In my world, the truth is a gas. It expands to fill whatever container I provide. The chair doesn't get to tell the king it remembers the tree it came from. The king decides it was always gold. That is the logic of the sovereign golden child. He is the king. I am the wood." But he forgot that gold is soft. And wood, if it's old enough, is hard as stone. He used to send me legacy grants. A $15,000 per night suite in Paris so I would understand the beauty of the world I kept clean. A $50,000 retirement fund for my mother's ghost, the one he knew I didn't have. He'd say, "Use this. It makes you look like you belong in a class that wouldn't have you otherwise." I used the booking data to find the secret meetings of the architects who managed the Blackwood Protocol. I didn't use the fund. I used a transaction ID to find the off-book accounts that paid for the Great Reset servers. Everything he gave me to civilize me. I used to map the structural flaws in his permanent peace. 2034 to 2035. I lived in the Dead Letter Office, a facility in West Virginia that officially handles undeliverable mail, but actually houses the paper evidence of every Blackwood betrayal since 1974. I was the auditor of the end. He was buying the concept of universal truth. He was being called the anchor of the West. He didn't realize that the anchor was tied to a chain I had been filing down for a decade. The montage, night 100, I bypassed the security layer of the Great Reset. Night 400, I linked Silas's legacy library to the evidence lockers of the International Criminal Court. Night 800, I created the zero-day trigger, a specific sequence of 12 leaks that would initiate the total recall. An exposure is a news cycle. A sovereign deletion is the total erasure of a family's right to exist in the history books. I wanted Silas to watch his permanent gold turn into digital ash in the time it takes to sign a pardon. Today, 9:25 a.m. The Global Peace Accord in Geneva. The air is a weather report of expensive stationery and $15,000 per night underwater suites. Silas is standing on the stage made of recycled ocean plastic. He is about to sign the Great Reset. He looks at me in the audience, the woman in the gray catering uniform. He doesn't see Elara Vance. He sees a piece of stable furniture that he is about to turn into firewood. He picks up the silver fountain pen. The sound is a digital silence. "For the children of the future!" he screams. The global registry interface appears on the 100-inch screen. Estimated valuation of the nationalized secrets, $1.4 trillion. I reach into my pocket. I pull out my $15 mechanical keyboard, the one with the enter key that my mother used to destroy the Sterling Empire. I hit it. At exactly 9:31 a.m., the total recall activates. The global register sees the signature. It recognizes the Blackwood Code, but it doesn't nationalize the secrets. Takaiser Shenji, Jigawanchal. It finds the $120 million in diverted funds in Paris. It finds the legacy library that was actually a data shredding center. It starts to dump the Blackwood permanent records into the public domain. The screen on the stage flickers. Silas looks at the monitor. He doesn't understand. The reset is signed. Why is the history still there? He screams. The collapse of the Blackwood dynasty was a weather report of total systemic execution. It didn't just ruin Silas Blackwood. It ruined the concept of the Great Reset. It ruined the Ethics Committee. It ruined the $1.4 trillion dream of a world without a past. Silas got the war crimes investigation for the systemic erasure of 14,000 human lives. Silas got the class action lawsuit from the 422 cleaners he had tried to delete. Silas got the permanent ban from every record book in the Western world. I got a quiet flight back to Tuscany. I got the legal title to the Blackwood estate, which I immediately turned into a public park for the families of the discarded. I got the satisfaction of watching the sovereign golden child drown in his own paperwork. The montage of the collapse. August, the 135 floor was shut down for forensic deep cleaning. The petrified wood table was sold at auction to pay for the legal fees of the victims. The room was silent for the first time in 40 years. September. Silas's silver fountain pen was sold at a police auction for $1.50. The nib was bent. The ink was dry. It looked like a piece of stable furniture left out in the rain. Xavier Cross and Julian Vane are in the same rehabilitation facility in Utah. The air is a weather report of dry sage and therapeutic silence. They are allowed 30 minutes of screen time per week. They don't look at the market. They look at a photo of me. I am standing in the garden of the Blackwood estate, now a park. I am wearing a 12 RMB fleece. I am holding a 12 RMB shovel. Silas Blackwood is in the same facility. He spends his days trying to remember the names of the people he erased. His permanent gold mine is now a weather report of fog and static. He looks at me in the photo. He doesn't remember Alara Vance. He just remembers the chair. I visit them once a year. I don't speak. I don't gloat. I just stand there. I am the weather report they can't predict. I am the history they can't delete. 2036. I am 44 years old. I am standing on the terrace of the Tuscany villa. The sun is hitting the 500-year-old stone. The wind is 2 miles per hour. Visibility, the Vance Collective is no longer an empire. It is a heartbeat, a steady, unremarkable rhythm. We don't have an IPO. We don't have a golden child. We have a $15 mechanical keyboard sitting on a stone table. It is covered in a thin layer of dust. It is finally at rest. If you've watched all 28 parts of the Erasure Protocol, understand the final lesson of the shadow. The world will always try to build a stone house around your smoke. They will try to tell you that the architect owns the air you breathe. Let them build their palaces. Let them sign their treaties. Because when the wind finally blows, the only thing left standing is the person who decided to stay smoke. The weather report for the rest of time? Clear skies, pulse 60 beats per minute. I am Alara Vance, and the void is finally legacy. 2041. I am standing in the Vesta Research Center in Brooklyn. It is no longer a corporate headquarters. It is a museum. But there are no Picassos on the walls. There are no weeping saints. The exhibits are specific. Exhibit A, a $15 mechanical keyboard with a sticking enter key. Exhibit B, a 12 RMB rusted shovel from a factory in Hubei. Exhibit C, a 422-page manual typewriter log of the city's sins. Exhibit D, a $20 Casio watch with a scratched face. The people who visit the museum are the discarded, the janitors, the mothers who were edited out of the history books. They don't pay for tickets. They pay with a story. A story of a time they were made to feel like furniture. A story of a time they were optimized into silence. I sat in the lobby and watched a young woman look at the mechanical keyboard. She was 22. She was wearing a gray, orderly uniform. She looked at the enter key and touched the glass of the display. "My mother told me about this," she whispered. "She said this is the key that pulled the plug on the machine." I didn't tell her I was the one who hit the key. I just looked at the weather report on the screen. Clear skies. Visibility, infinite. 2042. The Global Financial Oversight Committee has been replaced by the Human Collective. The $14 trillion dream of a world without a past is dead. But the debt remains, not the financial debt. The sovereign debt of the soul. Magnus Thorne is in a state-funded care home in Geneva. The air is a weather report of disinfectant and boiled cabbage. The 400-year-old oak panels of his old office are now being used to build sustainable housing in the global south. He sits in a plastic chair. Price? $18. He has a silver fountain pen in his hand. The pen is dry. He tries to sign his name on a napkin. He has forgotten how to spell madness. He only remembers the word mandate. I visited him in November. The rain in Geneva was 42 degrees. I handed him a Ziploc bag with a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich. He looked at the sandwich like it was a holy relic. Is this the optimization? He asked. No, Magnus, I said. This is the reality. He took a bite. He started. The sovereign golden child was finally tasting the salt of the earth. 2043. I am in a forest in Maryland. The air is a weather report of damp pine and the smell of wet soil. I am looking for the 42nd burial site, the one Julian Vane thought he had erased from my memory. I have the 12 RMB shovel. I didn't hire a crew. I dug the hole myself. I found the black plastic sheeting. Inside was the evidence of the first cleanup I ever did in 2012. A folder of documents that proved the Blackwood dynasty started with the betrayal of a Union leader in 1974. I didn't take the folder to the FBI. I took it to the Union leader's grandson. He is a school teacher in Baltimore. He earns $45,000 a year. He lives in a house with a small garden. I handed him the folder. Your grandfather wasn't a troublemaker, I said. He was a hero. And now, everyone will know his nick. The shadows in the forest were finally retreating. 2044. I saw Julian's daughter, Chloe, in Paris. She is 19. She's a student of architecture. She doesn't know about the Blackwood Protocol. She doesn't know about the basements. She thinks her father was a venture capitalist who lost everything in a market crash. She was sitting in a cafe sketching a building. She was using a 0.5 mm mechanical pencil. She looked like her father. She had the same golden child jawline. She saw me watching her. Do you like the drawing, she asked. Her voice was a weather report of youthful hope and untainted ambition. I looked at the drawing. It was a building made of glass and air. A building that couldn't stand the wind. It's beautiful, I said. But you might want to strengthen the foundation. The wind in this city can be very violent. She laughed. My father always told me the same thing. He said stability is for the help. He said the best buildings are the ones that breathe. That was the last microaggression of the Saint. Claire/Blackwood line. Even in exile, they were still teaching their children that the floor was a luxury. I didn't tell her the truth. I just bought her a $4 croissant and walked away. Mercy is a weather report of a clear sky, even if the ground is still wet. 2045. I am back in the Tuscany villa. The Sterling Collective is now a global network of forensic historians. We don't use AI. We use the Thorne Protocol. Woman Balingwen Daihuini Sebe Mort to the Shinti. I am painting a portrait of my mother, Maya Sterling. I am using the lead white she used in 2017. I am using the walnut oil from the trees in the garden. I am not painting her as a queen of the dark pools. I am painting her as the woman in the queen's basement, drinking the coffee, watching the code, building the void. If you've watched all 37 parts, understand the alchemist's final secret. You can't turn lead into gold. Lead is lead. Gold is gold. But you can turn ash into ink. And with ink, you can rewrite the world. The weather report. Absolute calm. Visibility infinite. 2046. I am 54 years old. I am sitting on the terrace of the villa. The sun is hitting the 500 stone. The wind is 1 mile per hour. Pulse, 60 times beats. The erasure protocol is finished. The liquidity trap is closed. The master of forgery has been restored. Ilara is in the garden. She is 31 now. She is holding the $15 mechanical keyboard. She is teaching a group of children how to write a line of code. The code isn't the machine, she tells them. The code is the heart. And if the heart is honest, the machine will never lie. I look at the horizon. I see the smoke from a distant chimney. It is a white line against the blue sky. It is a weather report of a home that is warm, a home that is stable, a home that is no longer a ghost. I reach into my pocket. I find a 50-cent plastic pen. I find a blank piece of paper. I don't write a protocol. I don't write a name. I just draw a single circle. A perfect circle. The beginning and the end. I am Ilara Vane, the daughter of Maya Sterling. The heir to the silence. And the void is finally legacy. 2037. I am standing in the lobby of the Blackwood building in D.C. The building was officially decommissioned 3 months ago. The white Thassos marble is covered in a 4.2mm layer of gray dust. The air is a weather report of stagnant air and the smell of ozone from a dying backup generator. The humidity is 55%. The high-speed elevators are frozen in their shafts. I am taking the service stairs. I am wearing the same 12 R&B fleece from 2017. It still smells like the bleach I used to clean the carpet in the 3.5 floorboard room, if you're still watching. Tell me, when a house of cards falls, do you look at the floor or the ceiling? I reached the 13th floor at 11:14 p.m. The secret boardroom was silent. The petrified wood table was gone, sold at a bankruptcy auction for $4,200. The only thing left was the outline of the chairs on the carpet. The outlines looked like the shadows of people who were never there. Julian Vane's $3,000 espresso machine is still in the corner. The water in the tank has turned into a dark, viscous slime. The $250 per bag beans have been eaten by the rats. This is the math of the golden child when the math stops working. They spent $15,000 a year on caffeine to stay awake for a dream that was actually a nightmare. I spent $2 on instant powder to stay awake for a reality that I was busy building. I didn't look for money. I looked for the negative space. The files they didn't shred because they didn't even know they existed. The logs of the janitors who were paid $14.50 an hour to see things they weren't supposed to. 2038. I am in a rental car in Des Moines, Iowa. It is a 2024 Toyota Camry, white, reliable, indistinguishable from 1,000 other cars on the I-80. The weather report, sleet. Temperature, 31 degrees Fahrenheit. I am looking for Pierce Sterling, the man who once owned a $2.4 billion algorithm. He is working at a call center for a health insurance company. He earns $19.25 an hour. He wears a headset made of cheap plastic that leaves a red mark on his ear. He spends 480 minutes a day telling people that their void claims are denied. He doesn't have a $45,000 Patek Philippe. He has a $15 plastic digital watch that chirps every hour. He doesn't eat at Nobu. He eats a $4.50 egg and cheese sandwich at his desk. The same sandwich I ate in the dark in 2019. I watched him walk to his apartment at 5:30 p.m. The apartment is 450 square feet. The walls are the color of wet cardboard. The radiator hisses like a dying animal. He looks at the window, but he doesn't see the city. He just sees his own reflection. He looks like a stable piece of furniture that has been left in a damp basement for too long. He is the golden child who finally realized that gold is just a color. I didn't talk to him. I just left a $2 instant coffee cup on the hood of his car, a reminder of the price of the soul he tried to sell. 2039. The rehabilitation facility in Utah is a study in clinical silence. The air is filtered and kept at a constant 68 degrees. The humidity is 30%. Julian Vane, Xavier Cross, and Silas Blackwood are sitting in the communal garden. They don't talk to each other. Julian is obsessed with the gravel. He spends his screen time trying to find his name on the internet. The search results come back. No found. The algorithm I wrote has effectively deleted him from the digital consciousness. He is a 404 error in a Brioni suit. Xavier Cross is trying to code. He uses a 12-year-old tablet with a cracked screen. He is trying to build a program that can predict the growth of the sagebrush. The sagebrush doesn't follow his math. It grows where It doesn't care about optimization. Xavier cries when the plants die. He calls it systemic failure. I call it spring. Silas Blackwood is the oldest. He looks at the mountains. He has forgotten the Great Reset. He has forgotten the $1.4 trillion. He only remembers the smell of the charcoal wool of his $15,000 suit. He touches his sleeve, but he is wearing a gray cotton sweatshirt. Price, $12. He looks at me when I visit. He thinks I am his nurse. He asks me if the cleaning is finished. Yes, Silas, I say. The streets are finally clear. 2040, Elias Vance, the digital golden child, is no longer in San Francisco. He is in a 200-square-foot studio in East Palo Alto. The air smells of stale coffee and burnt circuitry. He is the only one who still has a brain that works. He spent 1,000 nights trying to write a sorry algorithm. A piece of code that could calculate the exact amount of debt he owes to the human collective. The math keeps coming back. Infinite. He sent a message to the Tuscany villa last week. It was encrypted with a 420-bit key. Ilara, I found a way to restore the memories, the ones Julian erased. The ones Eris edited. I can give the people their void back. Just give me the access codes to the Shadow Archive. I sent him a Ziploc bag. Inside was the $500 Starbucks gift card from 2018. The plastic was yellowed. The magnetic strip was demagnetized. The note said, "You can't buy back a memory with a gift card, alias. And you can't restore a soul with an access code. The void isn't a file, it's a choice." He looked at the card for 42 minutes. Then he threw it into the trash. That was the first human decision he ever made.